Top 5 AP poll observations. And these are going to go through. We had people I thought were overrated, underrated, but these are just kind of observations. What is your guys' opinion on? Number 5, lots of love for A&M, Michigan, and Notre Dame across both of them. And look, Notre Dame is a good team, but they've got a new coach. They're going to have a new quarterback. Fifth, to me, just feels a little high to them. A&M, we've been through it a lot. Like, don't be 8-4 at the end of the year, and we can talk about being top 10. Need to take that step. And Michigan has to do it consecutive years. Like, these are all teams kind of not in the same boat, but I have similar questions for all three of them in that, can you really do it? And this is not about the long term for A&M and Notre Dame and Michigan, but this is about right now. That's what I'm curious about.
Yeah, no, those are three. There you go. Yeah.
Michigan, yes, you beat Ohio State last year. Yes, you won the Big Ten. Yes, you're in the playoff, but do it again. Do it again. And Ohio State is loaded for bear again, and it's going to be a tough team to beat. And they might have fixed the problem where you can't gash them in the run game.
They did physically beat them.
Mauled them.
Yeah, in a kind of a bloodletting out of years and years of frustration.
Yeah, but again, let's just see it finish out that way. New Big 12 teams might be a little low to me. Those three teams at 23, 24, and 25. I think that they're a little low. I think they could be a little bit higher. I think those three have proven more than, say, a Miami, who I think deserves to be ranked. They could be up in that range. You know, I would put Miami maybe down in the 20s. Just let them prove it under Mario Cristobal.
Brigham Young was 25th. They were unranked in the coaches poll.
Yeah. Houston, I think, should be a lot higher. Cincinnati.
Brigham Young could jump very
Cincinnati
high.
Might be in the right spot.
Off the top if they win at home against Baylor in week 2.
Yeah.
They could jump right into it. Yeah.
There's a case to be made. I mean, I really don't have much of an issue with, the fact that they're, I guess, low. I can understand Cincinnati. There's a case to be made for why they're low. They lost a lot off their team last year. U of H and BYU, I just don't think many people know about them. And I think in the case of BYU, there might be a few people waiting to see them at least get through that first stretch of their schedule before they start trying to get too high on the Cougars. I mean, if they beat Baylor, they will skyrocket into the top of the rankings or close to the top of the rankings. I just think U of H is under the radar. I think that if you don't have them in your top 25, that's a mistake. That would be my favorite to win the American this year, outside of Cincinnati, obviously. And I think they're going to be really good with Holgorsen. Not many people will leave a Big 12 job for a non-Power 5 job, but you see now, you're starting to see kind of why he did it. And that's not a knock on West Virginia. It's just it was time to go separate ways, and he found a unique opportunity at U of H where he knew he could thrive. And, next year they're going to be in the Big 12. And I think this is going to be a year for them to really have a good team. Let them get underrated at, the voters' own risk.
Yeah. Number 3, Wake Forest, 3 spots lower in this poll than they were in the AP. I don't know how much that has to do with Sam Hartman. I think most of these votes are probably already in and done by the time that news broke. But Wake Forest is a team that I think had this been in the regular season might not been in the poll because we don't know what they're going to be at quarterback and how they're going to be with a defense that wasn't good last year and won games with Sam Hartman in that offense.
I'm going to text Ralph Russo, who you guys had on Thursday, about when most of the ballots were turned in on Wake Forest. Craig, anything on Wake Forest?
No, not really. I mean, they're 3 spots lower, so it is what it is. Yeah. I'm not going to get that in depth on the polls to have a breakdown to Paul's note on that. If they are 3 spots lower, that's just coincidence. If they didn't know the news about Sam Hartman, and if they did know the news, then they thought that only moves them 3 spots, and that would be interesting. But it's negligible at best.
Yeah, I mean, and I just wonder if they had that news or when most of the polls come in, and that's why.
Well, that's what I'm saying is if they knew about that news and they're like, oh, they're only 3 spots lower, losing their starting quarterback. Well, then hell, that says a lot about Wake Forest. I'm not going that far right now, but apparently some people would. So that would be interesting to know.
Yeah. Number 2. Utah's getting respect, but are they too low? I think they are. I would put Utah at 5. I really would. I think that they.
You know what? Somebody brought this up though, Paul, and we like to look at the different levels or angles or just. They lost 4 games last year. Now Ohio State was an amazing game. Mm-hmm. They lost a game early when Charlie Brewer was the starter. There's a reason they lost game 2 because they in such a hole they couldn't come back. Cam Rising tried to. So there's 3, but they lost a game to Oregon State who was a 7-6 team. Is that a game that people gloss over? And I get it's a conference game. It's a conference game, so I get it. But that one seems to like be a wart there.
Yeah, it does. I just think that Cam Rising with a full offseason of being the starter.
They did win 6 or 7 in a row until Ohio State beat them, so they were hot.
Yeah. With full offseason preparing as the starter, full offseason that team being the Pac-12 champs, all that experience coming back to them will be better off. That I don't think they lose games like the Oregon State game this year.
And I love the way they play.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think Kyle Whittingham, he's a coach in his 60s. Not to say that I think he's going to retire. There's some like scuttlebutt around that. I think he's kind of, pedal to the floor here.
They won 9 of their last 10 before losing an incredible game that we watched while we were down in the bowels eating like dinner at the Sugar Bowl. Yeah, they were hot.
Yeah.
Beat Oregon 38-7. And again 38-10.
Yeah. And number 1, BYU in the poll, Texas out of the poll. This makes much more sense in the coaches poll to me because BYU has kind of shown over the last couple of years that this is a team that should be in the poll, as where Texas has not yet. And we know way more about BYU than we do about Texas, but Texas somehow got to the 18th in the other poll.
I think what happens, and I don't vote in the AP Top 25 poll, but I think what happens sometimes is the first 5, 6, 8, 10, sometimes there's debate, but you kind of, and then you get down to about 17, you start looking around, okay, who should be in there, and then you start looking at logos.
Well, I think part of the problem is that they expect people to know 25 teams well enough and then a bunch of others well enough to know exactly what that order would look like. I listen to national guys all the time. I could tell immediately they don't know how to go much deeper past the surface level. I mean, I'd say this, we can be knowledgeable about a lot of teams, but not everybody's super knowledgeable about a ton of teams. Like, not even the guys who you think, like Herb Street, for example, is somebody, do you know how much studying he does? Like, in the week leading up to a game? That's not just like him riffing. I mean, I'm sure some of it is, but he knows, like, hey, Kirk, you got a segment on SportsCenter. We're going to talk about Utah. We're going to talk Arizona State. We're going to talk Washington State. So anything he doesn't know, he can like sharpen his irons a little bit. I just think it's really hard unless you're like somebody who's doing a game every week or you're involved to know super in depth the storylines beyond the conference you cover. It's just hard to do. It's hard to keep up with all of it. So I think that's what you see a lot. And the fact that there's either just a lack of knowledge, but also the lack of knowledge that everybody has is that nobody's played a game yet.
Yeah.
So if you want to tell me that Texas is the number team in the country, you can make a case for that. That's fine if you feel that way. I feel differently, but it's a preseason poll. That's why, you can't put a whole ton of stock into it because, some are going to be way off. Some are going to be right on point. The ones that are right on point are the easy ones that are 1 through 4. It's just a matter of getting the order right. But even then, you're not going to be far off. But beyond that, I mean, it's a total crapshoot. Everybody's 0-0 right now.
You don't know. I mean, you really, really, really don't know. And for example, Arlo 220. You honestly think Houston will beat Texas Tech September 10th? Seriously?
Yes, I do.
I think they could very well. Yeah, absolutely, I do.
I mean, last year was an incredible game. So, Arlo, I know there's a lot of excitement with Joey and Tech, and there should be. But there's also a pretty damn good team in Houston they got their quarterback back, and they're kind of stabilized with what they do with Holgorsen, although West Virginians don't like me using that name.
I'll tell you right now, if Alton McCaskill was healthy, I'd say yes, absolutely, I would take Houston in that game, but that gave me a little bit of pause. But, I mean, it's in Lubbock. That gives me a little less pause, but do I think that Houston can go out there and win? Yes, absolutely, I do. Do I think they will? I don't know. We got to get closer to that game first before I make a pick, but, I don't think that's crazy at all. I wouldn't be surprised if Houston was the favorite in Vegas going into that game, with the only reason being why they wouldn't be the fact that it's in Lubbock, honestly.
That's also, I think, Houston's longest road trip until the end of the year. So,
There's a couple of folks